I always say to people, especially on my team, I always say, I can see it up here. I don't have words for it yet, but I can see the vision that I'm trying to create. And then the more I sort of sit in the vision, the more the words come out. Sometimes you want to try the words out on people, but then you got to be really careful.
That's right.
Some of them will start to rip it to shreds when you're haven't fully vetted that vision yet. But I love the eyeglass one, which actually leads me to wonder, have you received a lot of hate on socials at all?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in this for like 15 years. So there's people who don't agree with what I do. You know, it's definitely more love. And that's the thing I had to realize. Like, I have this quote that I tell people: don't let the 10% of hate take your mind off the 90% of love.
Yeah.
Because the hate is loud because you're not used to it. It's something different. And then you literally give your energy to that when there's thousands of people that love what you do. So I made a promise to myself to give my support energy to those that need it. Mm-hmm. And when people hate, I protect my peace. I don't try to, prove them wrong. Mm-hmm. I was like, if that's how you feel, you're right. Yeah. And that's great. And it doesn't have to stop my life. I'm just going to keep serving. But one thing is for sure, I'm not going to stop. And so I've learned how to own my power and my peace by not allowing somebody to pull me out of character and take my energy towards that.
Yeah. What do you see? You and I chatted about this when we first sat down. You do a lot of speaking. You've been doing a lot of this podcasting, and you've, out in what I call the trenches with people. What are you seeing about humanity right now? And I think, because this is something for my vision that I spend a lot of time looking at patterns that our culture is going through and looking at where I can be of service within these patterns. Like, I'll give you an example right now. One of the patterns for women specifically is there's just too much information about nutrition out there, and women are getting people in general are getting really lost.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I should go do this. Oh, now I should go do this. So I've been really trying to synthesize all that information and try to bring it into chunk it into simple ways for people to bring everybody into the conversation. So what have you noticed as you've been out into the world? Are people suffering? Are they confused? You talked a little bit about how people are expressing themselves for the first time. You've been doing motivational speaking for 15 years.
Yeah.
Where are people at?
Yeah, I think we're at a place, number one, definitely of information overload.
Yes, agree.
And I'm glad that you're doing that because, I saw one place like, don't drink water. I'm just like, you can find like so many different things.
You're not hydrating.
Yeah, it's like, I was like,
drinking water.
So I thought I'm supposed to. So like, it's just, you gotta that's why I said, you gotta trial and error, and like, you gotta at least stick with something for a while and feel your own body and see what works. But what I'm seeing is, I am seeing a lot more people be vocal about what they're going through. Mm-hmm. One of the things that always broke my heart is silent battles. People crying out for help but not saying the word. Yeah. But now I feel like people are opening up and talking, and it's not a weakness no more. Obviously, I think 2020 really shifted that a lot about mental health. Yeah. Mental health is no longer a weakness. Like, I'm going to talk about what I'm going through so I can seek help. I'm often seeing too a lost generation of people. What I mean by that, like, they're chasing after things that they don't even know what they're chasing after. Yeah. Chasing after perfection, chasing after, social media, is just a constant chase. And I see a lot of people are tired, burnt out, and jumping from one thing to the next, starting one thing this week and a month later they're trying something else. And then they're giving up on themselves. And then the last thing that I see is just, it comes down to people not feeling like they're enough. Mm-hmm. And, I started in this space with self-worth. And I went on a tour, my own tour, and I asked this question to all my VIP audience. So it was like hundreds and hundreds of people. Maybe two people actually had an answer. And because everybody complained, like, I just feel like I'm not enough. And so I asked the question, I said, okay, what's your definition of enough? Mm. And nobody knew.
Right. We're all chasing something we're trying to fill.
I feel like I'm not enough. Yeah, but okay, what's your definition of enough?
Yeah.
And this idea of perfection, it's like you're chasing something that doesn't even exist right now. And so when I say that, like, what's your definition of enough? People are like, I don't know, is enough followers, enough, making how people feel about you? Like, what's enough? And I think it's just mission impossible for a lot of people, and people are suffering because of that.
Yeah. How do we change that? One of the, at the end of this, I'll ask you the question I ask everybody, which is, what is health? Because I think that something as simple as that question, most people can't answer. But then they're all, spending money on supplements and gyms and memberships and things trying to get healthy, but they don't know what the definition of health is. And so there's so many scenarios of that in this world where we're chasing something that we think when we get it, we're going to be happy, or we're going to be the person we always thought we were going to be. And yet we don't even have a definition of the thing that we're chasing.
Yeah.
And what we may be chasing is this horrible, yucky feeling inside of me of not enough. And what I just need to do everything I can so I don't feel that.
Yeah.
How do you think we change that as a culture?
Yeah, I think as a culture, I just feel like we have to simplify it, and we have to let people know and value people based on who they are as a human. I think it starts there. Like, I feel like we only value people when they're valuable, as far as like, who you are, what you do. Like, one of the things that I can't stand is like when somebody treats me different when they find out like who I am,
right,
or what I do. Right. I'm like, no, treat me good, or however you want to treat me, based upon the heart of me. And that's why I never tell people what I do half the time, because I'm like, I want you to love me from my heart and judge me based on that. If I'm a terrible person because our interaction, then cool, but I don't want you to treat me different because of some celebrity or some status around my name. And so I think that's a big part too, is like, with people, we got to get back to the foundation of like who we are as a core, and who we are at the core, and making that so simplistic, because you said something that's very powerful. A lot of people, they're chasing all these things, and once they get it, they think they're missing something. Or I'm missing finances. And of course, these things can help your life, but are I'm missing, notoriety, I'm missing status, I'm missing all these things. And I tell people, if you can't be fulfilled with nothing, you'll never be fulfilled with everything, because that will wear off. It's hedonic adaptation, what they call it. Is like, and basically it's a fancy word to say you're going to get used to it. And once you get used to it, what you're still left with? The things you didn't heal from. Yeah. And so I want people to heal at a foundational level. And I talk about this in the book, Principle 9, is like living fulfillment. What does fulfillment mean to you? Yep. And for me, it's simply doing what I love with who I love. And that's when I felt the most happiest. And this is a person that NFL career, I was the lowest in my life. So I'm like, okay, well, this is my mecca of life and I'm still low. There's something wrong. Followers, speaking on stages, financial freedom, all these things still didn't give me peace. It was the time freedom, and the time freedom allowed me to do things that really mattered to me. Yeah. And so I think if we simplify life, simplify happiness, I talk about that in the book, where we make happiness so easy to obtain every single day, we have no choice but to be happy. Yeah. Because most people's list is hard. Yeah. It's like, I got to have all these check boxes to be happy. And I'm like, that's mission impossible every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had a real aha again in the last year, because I had so much success with Fast Like a Girl going out into the world. And what I realized is that there were moments that I was like, I'm living what I have dreamed of my whole life. And yet there are still some holes that I'm feeling. There's still some traumas. There's still some patterns of thought that even all this success could not undo. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that I had a sense of like, well, there you go. It's not going to be the next level of more. It's going to be taking those patterns of thought and starting to get to the root cause of them and break them apart and understand them. But I think this year more than ever, I have a real aha of, oh yeah, that thing that you think you want, it's the be careful what you ask for, because you may get it and realize that the pain and suffering that you have now is still there. Yeah. When you get the thing that you always dreamed of getting.
And that's when depression can rise even more.